in LA.
Little babies and a darling of a wife. You're a mean old dagger.
Our pot dealer came over to the house that night, and after we bought some pot, he said, well, I've got this new stuff called LSD 25, and there he had 4 little sugar cubes. He said, do you want to try it? We said, sure. So we took it, and about an hour later, we were waiting for Cass to come over. I'd never met her before. There was a knock at the door, and the moment that I opened the door, it kicked in.
Out of the ashes of the Journeymen came the Mamas and Papas, who would also blend the British invasion with folk in 1965.
Something else happened that night, too. It was the first time I'd ever heard a Beatles album. And it was so obvious that this was the direction that we had to go in. Folk was dead. When you heard that Beatles album, you knew this is all over. Well, I think that folk rock really is exactly what that sounds like. We were not Buddy Holly. We were not Chuck Berry's. We were not Elvis Presley. And we didn't even know what we were doing. We were trying not to sound too folksy.
The song you're about to hear was written by a 19-year-old boy. That's nothing new these days, particularly since this song is something special. It has an awful lot of important things to say about how we grown-ups are running the world. It was recorded a few weeks ago by Barry McGuire. It's now #1 in the country today, which proves that a song can still be popular and yet have something to say. Barry McGuire and Eve of Destruction.
Even the voice of protest would get the West Coast treatment.
The Eastern world, it is exploding.
We knew Barry McGuire from the New Christie Minstrels, which had about as much spontaneity as a rock. Eve of Destruction, loved it. It was a song that everybody wished they could have done, but nobody could have done it like Barry.
But you tell me over and over and over again, my friend, you don't believe we're on the eve of destruction.
Despite their best efforts, the old faces of folk were looking distinctly passé. Pete Seeger, still suffering from being blacklisted, resorted to creating his own TV show.
And needles so fine.
I did briefly have a television show, but we ran out of money after 39 shows, and so it was called Rainbow Quest. We did have some good shows. Johnny Cash was on it. He refused to accept any payment. But I was not that experienced, and it wasn't that exciting a show.
So you're going to leave the old home, Jim, today. You're going away. You're going among the city folks to dwell. So spoke a kind old mother to her boy one summer day. If your
While
mind
Seeger was
made
losing
up that
popularity
dream,
amongst the young, his songs weren't.
I was on the road with my acoustic guitar on the bus, and somebody asked me if I knew the song, Turn, Turn, Turn. And I came up with this arrangement. Do everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. Which was different from Pete's arrangement, which was, to everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time to every purpose under heaven. So I kind of Beatleized the song. I put Beatle beat to it and kind of souped it up a little bit and put some more passing chords in it than it had before. At the time Turn, Turn, Turn came out and was the #1 hit by the Byrds, I got a letter from Pete Seeger, and it said, "Dear Byrds, I really liked the way you did Turn, Turn, Turn. My only musical query is why didn't you repeat the chorus in the last?" And the answer, Pete, was for time. It was already 3 minutes and 30 seconds, which was really long for AM radio, and we couldn't get away with another chorus, so.
But we'll dedicate this program to all the people that are not going to give up. I think of Woody Guthrie sitting off there in a hospital somewhere, maybe looking at this program. I think of people that maybe died young but knew that somehow their work would keep on going after them.
Meanwhile, former protégé Bob Dylan had entirely abandoned the folk movement. In '66, Dylan had chosen to tour the world with the Hawks, a rock and roll band who had little time for the folk revival.
The people that played folk music came from the other side of the tracks, and they were over there listening to music and sipping cappuccinos. The places we played in, nobody was sipping cappuccinos, you know, it was just a whole different vibe. So I don't know, it just made us feel kind of like the Scoundrels or something. In this period, there was a lot of people that came in on the train of folk music that evolved into playing what they called back then electric, you know, and we didn't know that there was anything other than electric.
San Francisco, a whole scene that had come in on the folk train was about to transform into something else.
What we had on the West Coast was a lack of seriousness that the East Coast has with it. It needs a reason for things to be, in my opinion, an intellectual reason to be. If there's any motto on the West Coast, that probably is "fuck it. We do what we want."
I can't walk you out in the morning today.
There was one point in the mid-'60s where we were running a folk club in San Jose while we were still going to college, and there was the advent of LSD and Fender twin reverb amplifiers with reverb. So we plugged our little acoustic guitars into these amplifiers, and without that combination, we could see the future, as it were. And then we started adding our own tradition, which in my mind is what folk music taught me to do.
You didn't hear no baby cry today.
The Grateful Dead had started off as a jug band, but their version of Morning Dew, a folk standard from the early '60s, was something else altogether.
Where have all the people gone, my honey?
The folk revival's impetus was fast being absorbed into rock music, and its topical concerns were moving on too.